Hey guys, and welcome to my Russian Civ overview. In this video, I'll be going over the unique units and techs of the Russian Civ, as well as the different unique cards and team cards that they have access to give you an idea of what kind of decks you can build. And then lastly, I'll be going over the general gameplay and gameplay mechanics of the civilization to give you an idea of how they actually play. So to get started, we'll go over the civilization bonus. So settlers and infantry are trained in groups. So what this means in reality is, so for example, your settlers will come out in a group of 3, and they'll cost 270 food each. And then you have other units like Strelets will come out in a group of 10, Musketeers in a group of 5, Halberdiers in a group of 4. So it basically allows your units to come out, in a sense, faster, and I don't know if this is necessarily better than how other civs do it, but it's just kind of like a different way to play, where it does feel better to have like a group of 10 pop out, but I don't know if in reality it's actually faster in a lot of cases, but it does feel faster for sure. Next we have the Royal Guard units. So we have the Tatar Loyalist, the Cavalry Archer. So this is just the ranged cav that is good against other cavalry. Then we have the Pavlov Grenadiers, and these are just the infantry unit that basically has an AOE attack against other infantry, or has a better attack against buildings. Then we have the Russian unique units. So we have probably my favorite unit, the Strelet, which is kind of your spammable unit. So it comes out in a group of 10, and it's just a weak and cheap skirmisher. So this will probably usually make up the bulk of your army in terms of just having like a meat shield front line, or kind of just hanging out in the back line shooting everything. They also have this little axe for melee combat. Then we have the Cossacks, which are just the Russian hand cavalry equivalent, so good against skirmishers or artillery. And then lastly, we have the Oprichniks, which they're basically the raiding cavalry, so they're good against villagers and buildings. And then we have my probably favorite aspect of the Russian civilization, which is the blockhouses. So the blockhouses are a combination of the barracks and the outpost. So basically you can train your Strelets and all those kind of infantry from this, but at the same time you can upgrade these to have guns or cannons shoot out of them. So this can be used in a few different ways. So defensively you could have these on the perimeter of your own base to kind of protect your base. You can have these by your resources to protect your resources, or you can have kind of a forward base of operations to where you're pumping out infantry near the front line, but it also is shooting the enemy with guns or whatever, which is probably my favorite way to use them, is as a forward operating base. So a lot of different ways you can use these, but a lot of cool unique bonuses that the Russians get here. It's kind of mimicking, I think, how Russia actually worked, which is, they'd spam all these infantry and just kind of throw them at the enemy, and, a lot of them would die, but you usually overwhelm your opponent, and that's actually how they play in this game, so that's pretty fun to play as a kind of horde faction. But with the tech tree out of the way, let's go ahead and look at the deck builder. So first, let's look at their unique cards. So first off, we have Polar Explorer. It's just an Explorer upgrade, so damage and hit point upgrade. We have Boyars, so basically giving an upgrade of hit points and attack damage to all of the Russian unique units. Sevastopol is basically reducing the build time of all the defensive fortifications for the Russians. So again, playing into that kind of Russian defensive playstyle, or forward operating base playstyle. Then we have all infantry train faster, and we have 2 of these cards. So if you stack these, basically your infantry will be popping out incredibly fast from all of your blockhouses. Provides your church with unique Russian improvements. This is Reformist Tsar, which will give you a few different options. The first of which is Kalmucks. So this will send a shipment of 9 Kalmucks, which are musket-armed cavalry. Basically, these are 9 dragoons. Then we have Westernization, which will raise all your troops to veteran status if they're not already. And then similarly, in the next stage, we have Petrine Reforms, which raises all your troops to guard status if they're not already. So these 2 cards are basically ways to save on resources and upgrade all your troop levels if you haven't done that already. And then lastly, we have Bashkir Ponies, which just delivers 17 Hussars. Suvorov Reforms transforms all your Strelets into Musketeers. This can be pretty powerful in a few different scenarios. Just in general, if you're spamming all these Strelets, you have like 100 Strelets, transform them all into Musketeers, then you have a heavy You basically have a heavy infantry unit now instead of a skirmisher, so depending on the scenario, that might be stronger. And then I'll show off some of the other use cases in a second. Sterlet combat, just increasing the attack and hit points of the sterlets. Blockhouse cannon, so now you can train falconets and mortars from the blockhouses. So like I said, if you have a forward operating base and you're overwhelming your opponent with your infantry, well, now you can just pop out a mortar on the front line and start taking out all their buildings. So this is a pretty strong card. Basically allows the Russians to snowball their enemies. Frontier defenses, just upgrading the hit points on your blockhouse wagons and then shipping 2 of them. So it's going to help you get up a couple blockhouses if you're low on wood. Sterlet Horde. Each blockhouse will do a one-time muster of 5 sterlets. So once you've built out all of your blockhouses, then you can play this card and get a bunch of sterlets out very quickly. It also gives sterlets a one-time HP boost of 10%. So I would pretty much always take this card if you're planning on using sterlets, which you probably are. You can also combo this with like this other Suvorov reforms. So if you muster all these sterlets, and you can turn them into musketeers right away if you want to, if you want heavy infantry instead of skirmishers. So a couple of different ways you can combo these cards together. Then we have Unicorn Mortars. Reduced training cost of mortars, train rate and attack increased. So basically improving on the Russian mortars, which in combination with mortars being built from these blockhouse cannons, it just kind of goes into the combination of Russian infantry with these artillery can be very strong to overwhelming your opponents. Next we have Caster Imitation. So this is basically the alternative to the other fort card, or in addition to it if you want 2 forts. So it ships a fort wagon to your colony, and it also allows you to rebuild the lost forts with your explorer, or they can also rebuild blockhouses and outpost. And then lastly we have National Redoubt. So increases musketeer attack and hit points and enables them to construct forts if you lost one. So again, you can kind of see some of the synergies here. So you can transform all your sterlets into musketeers if you want, and then you can rebuild a lost fort right on the front line. So depending on the situation, there's a lot of pretty crazy combinations you can pull off if you're in the right situation. Next, let's go over the team cards. So we have Team Cavalry Scouts. So cavalry hit points and line of sight increased. Team Furrier. Villagers gather food from hunted animals, berries, and cherry orchards faster. And they also last longer. So when you're gathering from them, there'll be a higher yield. This is pretty good. Pretty much in any team game, you'll almost always need food. So definitely recommend taking this card in any team games you're playing. Here's one that's not as useful. Team Coastal Defenses. So it's just increasing building attack versus ships. So you might want this on a naval map. It's kind of the equivalent of Heated Shot in Age of Empires 2. But in my opinion, it's probably not worth taking this over a lot of these other cards. Team Coldwater Port, Team Warships are cheaper. Now this is a pretty good naval card because it basically allows all of your allies to build more warships if you're on a naval map. So I would take this card if you're playing on a naval map where there's a lot of water. Then we have Team 2 Surgeons, so heals injured units and can build field hospitals. Pretty straightforward. Team Cheap Priest, so just building, or the priests and imams and missionaries are all cheaper. Team Barracks hit points, so again this is kind of synergizing with the defensive playstyle, so your blockhouse will get an extra 50% hit points, and all your allies' barracks will either get 50% or 100% boost to their hit points. So that's another pretty good card you can consider. Team 2 Mortars. So if your team is kind of on the offensive and looks to be winning, this might just seal the deal. So ship 2 mortars to all of your teammates, and then you can just start destroying all of their buildings pretty quickly. Then we have Team 8 Spies. So if your enemies in a team game are spamming mercenaries or have a really strong war chief or something like that, then this could be a good card to play to get all your teammates spies so that you can take those important units out. And then lastly, we have Team 1 Monitor. So this is a mortar ship, so I guess this is the equivalent of the Team 2 Mortars, but on a naval map. So if your team has the upper hand and you want to start taking out all their buildings and things like that, then you can get Team 1 Monitor and start taking out all their buildings from the sea. So yeah, some really cool cards in here. Definitely Team Furrier is a good one. Team Coldwater Port and Team Barracks hit points are probably my favorite. And then a lot of these unique cards like the Sterlet Horde and Caster Imitation and National Redoubt, Blockhouse Cannon. Those are all really good. So definitely some cool unique cards that the Russians get. So yeah, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and hop into some gameplay and show off the Russian gameplay, as well as just go over some mechanics of how the Russian Civ plays overall. So now we're on to the gameplay section. So this game was a 4v4 where I played Russia and applied a little bit of pressure early game with the Strelette Rush, and then I followed up with some Oprichnik harass to kill the enemy villagers in the mid game. But then late game it kind of falls short and I get overrun by Japanese late game samurai units, and I just couldn't really find the right unit counter for that, so I got overwhelmed. And also didn't help that we had one ally who pretty much didn't make an army the whole game. But regardless, I think this game shows off a pretty good summary of what Russia is capable of and kind of what they're all about. So there's a few different ways to play Russia, but pretty much every strategy is centered around early to mid game. Because late game your units just really won't stack up, because even though they're cheaper to produce, they are a lot weaker than other units. So at population cap, you'll pretty much be overwhelmed by their stronger units. So you can kind of either go with an early game Strelette Rush and follow that up with just taking map control and eventually doing a bigger push with artillery. Or you can do some mid-game harass with the Oprichniks to try to kill their buildings and villagers and take map control that way. But either way you do it, it pretty much, the Russian gameplay kind of relies on being aggressive in the early game and taking map control. And then you can follow it up with things like building blockhouses close to their bases, like forward operating bases, and pushing with those, bringing in mortars and artillery later, and following up that way. But you pretty much need to be aggressive and have the upper hand in the economy, otherwise you're going to get overwhelmed in the mid to late game. But yeah, I think that pretty much summarizes kind of what the Russians are all about in general. You can always look up specific build guides on the internet to see kind of like how I did this Strelette Rush, or how you can do, get to a fast fortress stage to build Oprichniks and things like that. But yeah, I think they're really fun Civ to play. They play a lot different than every other Civ, obviously, because they can just spam a lot of units. Definitely worth trying out. I found that they're not that good in team games, since team games usually go to the late game. But I think in 1v1s or 2v2s they can still be pretty effective, since, if you're killing the one or two players, the other two won't come kill you afterwards. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe, and I put the link to the rest of this video gameplay in the description if you want to watch the rest of this game. But yeah, thanks for watching.